you had mentioned like when you started realizing some of those, you got home and you started spiraling a little bit.
Yeah.
And you said you were spiraling, but you felt okay. Can you just explain that a little bit? Because I think that's so powerful in the sense of like when we have bad days or where we experience negative emotions, we sometimes hold on to those and we think that's going to be
Mm-hmm.
forever, or we feel like we're not okay just because we're experiencing something negative or something that is hard to experience, maybe uncomfortable to
Mm-hmm.
experience. And so when you can say, like, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say I'm spiraling, but I'm okay. I think that's
Yeah.
a really powerful way to put that. If you could just like kind of explain what that looked like in your mind.
I had this moment where I and it my so I was with my kids. My ex went offshore, and at this point in my life I was deeply under a rock. I came back from Bali and I had very little interaction. I wasn't going out. My few close friends would like, you still there? You know, they knew that I was just like deeply inside of myself, working through everything. And as I went deeper and deeper, I had this moment, and my kids, they were just being kids. It was just something super normal. I don't remember what it was, but it just overwhelmed me. I just couldn't even hold it together enough for them anymore. And I went into my room and I went into my closet and I was just crying like deep in your chest, like heaving, just the beyond ugly crying. It was just my soul was breaking open. It was that moment where I had to completely surrender to I was just like, this is, I think the first time I experienced this was when I was in the hospital, and I've had a few different experiences, um, a couple of times in plant medicine, where I just had to say, if this is it, if this is the moment that I die, then this is it. There's nothing more that I can do. And I had to completely surrender in my mind to whatever outcome was ahead of me, because in that moment I was just so broken hearted. I was so devastated, and I was feeling all of these enormous emotions. But in my spiritual journey that is happening concurrent to all of this stuff, I explained how it was presenting in my life, but internally there's this incredible journey going on at the same time. And in that journey, and this is the things Bufa with that ego death, is I really understood that I am two beings sharing an experience. I am a physical human being made of cells and carbon and minerals, and I'm a body that feels sensation both externally and internally. And I'm also an eternal spiritual being that is a soul, or whatever you want to call it, sharing together as a team this experience of life. And so as my body was going through the experience of the emotions, um, as I'm feeling all of this energy move through me, and I'm feeling the devastation and the grief and the loss and the fear, I have never felt so alone in my life. At the same time, and let me back up. In that moment, there there was this moment where I'm in the closet and I'm crying, probably harder than I've ever cried, because I had to learn how to cry throughout this whole journey, right? Because when I was growing up, we weren't allowed to cry. If we cried, we would get in more trouble. So we learned to like shove it all in. And I understand that crying is a healthy physical way to release energy. And so I'm allowing myself to cry. And I remember having this thought where I was like, I understand why people commit suicide. I understand the feeling of just there's no ground under you. It just feels like you're in this void because those emotions are bigger than our bodies know how to handle. And our brain, being a physical part of our body that we amalgamate with our mind, and our brain doesn't always have the ability to process these huge emotions. And so in the past, another version of me would have, like, my anxiety would have kicked in and I would have just been frantic and I need to control this and I need to do something. But the other part of me that experiences this life, the spiritual side of me, knew that I was okay, knew that I was just going to sit there and I was going to cry, and part of me was going to die, and then I was going to come through it. And I didn't know how long that was going to take, and I didn't know what that entire process was going to look like, but I trusted myself. And so that's where I knew I was going to be okay, even though it was the most devastating experience I'd ever